Shalom to all! Today's daf is Rosh Hashanah test. We are starting 4 lines from the top, the 4th word on the line. And today's daf is sponsored Leilu Nishmas, Maris Miriam Sarah Basar Yaakov Maisha, her neshama should have an aliyah, and Leilu Nishmas, Maris Rivka Basar Meir Zev, her neshama should have an aliyah. Now we learned yesterday that it's normal to be Maisif Mechayil Ala Kodesh, to add on to that which is Kodesh from that which is Chayil. In halachic terminology, it's called Taisefes Shvias, Taisefes Shabbos, adding on to these things. Now the Gemara explores the source. With Maisif Mechayil Ala Kodesh Minal, and how do we know that we're Maisif Mechayil Ala Kodesh? How do we know this concept of Taisefes? Titani, we have a brisa. The pasuk says as follows: "B'char shv'kasar tishbais, from plowing and harvesting you shall rest." Now, the beginning of the pasuk talks about Shabbos, Sheshes Yom Tavoid v'Yom Shvi Tishbais, and the pasuk concludes with this: "B'char shv'kasar tishbais." Now, Rabbi Kiva Eimer, he says that the second part of the pasuk that we just read, "B'char shv'kasar tishbais," can't be talking about Shabbos because that would imply that only Charish and Ketziras are also on Shabbos and not other things. So he says that it must be talking about Shvias, must be talking about Shemitah. However, it can't actually be talking about plowing and harvesting on Shemitah itself. Because there's already a pasuk talking about Shemitah Sad Chalis Isra. So Ella must be that what's this pasuk talking about? Charshal Erev Shvias, Hanichas L'Shvias, that there's an Isser, you're not allowed to do some sort of plowing on Erev Shemitah to your field that's going to be going into Shemitah. That means it's going to be benefiting your field on Shemitah, and because of Shal Shvias, Hayotze L'Maitzei Shvias, when you harvest something, even though it's after Shemitah, it's Maitzei Shemitah, and you still have to treat it with the Kedusha of Shemitah, and that's considered Taisefes of Shemitah, that's being Maisef Mechal HaKodesh before Shemitah and after Shemitah. Now Rishmal Eimer, he argues and says that this pasuk is actually talking about Shabbos. Machar Shishos, just like plowing is always optional, there's no sort of plowing that's actually mitzvah, so af kasser rishos, so too the harvesting which is also to be done on Shabbos is only an optional sort of harvesting. Yatzak tzira aimer shu mitzvah, that excludes the harvesting of the carbon aimer, that's a mitzvah, and that's allowed to be done on Shabbos. So the Gemara asks Rabbi Shmuel, Mesif Mechal Kodesh Menali, how does Rabbi Shmuel know this concept of Taiseves that you're supposed to add from Chayil to Kodesh? So Nafgalei, he learns it out, Miditanya, from the following brisa. Talking about Yom Kippur, the pasuk says, V'nisam es nafshosechem b'tesha, you shall afflict your souls on the 9th day, meaning the day before Yom Kippur. Yachal b'tesha, you might think that you're actually supposed to fast on the 9th day, not the 10th. Tamalar be'erev, that's what it says, in the evening time, meaning already the beginning of the 10th. But iba erev, yachal mishetachshach, you might think you should only start fasting once it gets dark, once it becomes the 10th day. Tamalar b'tisha, that's why it says b'tisha in the pasuk, there's some sort of element of fasting on the 9th day. Ha'ketzad, how do we work this out? Maschal misanim b'yayim, a person's supposed to start fasting already on the 9th day. Malamet shemesif Mechal HaKodesh, we learn from here that we're Maisiv Mechal HaKodesh, this is Taisefes Yom Kippurim, you're supposed to start fasting for Yom Kippur already on the 9th day, a little bit before the 10th day starts. I only know that you're supposed to start fasting earlier. There's a mitzvah of Taisefes before Yom Kippur. What about after Yom Kippur is over? How do we know if there's still this mitzvah of Taisefes to be Maisiv Mechal HaKodesh? Tamalaymer, the pasuk says, Me erev ad erev, from one evening till the next evening. I only know that there's a mitzvah of Taisefes for Yom Kippur. Shabbos is minayin. What about the mitzvah of Taisefes Shabbos, adding on to Shabbos? Tamalaymer, it says Tish Besu. Yom Tovim minayin. What about the mitzvah of Taisefes for Yom Tiv? Tamalaymer Shabbat Chem. Ha-Ketzad, what do we learn from here? Kol makam sheish bo shvos. Anytime the pasuk says shvos, resting, Masifim Mechal HaKodesh, we're going to add on from Chayil to Kodesh. Now, Rabbi Kiva, what does he do with this pasuk? He doesn't need it for Taisefes because he already learned that out from Shemitah. So he's saying, he needs it for the following. The Tani Chia Barav Midifti, he taught us, the Chibet Tisha Misanin, do we actually fast on the 9th day of Halei Basir Misanin? We fast on the 10th day, that's when Yom Kippur is. Why does it say you're supposed to fast on the 9th day? This is to tell you, anyone that eats and drinks on the 9th day, the day before Yom Kippur, Mal Al Makasav, the pasuk treats him, Tesam Bez on top, Ki'ilu His Ana Chiv Hasiri, as if he fasted on the 9th and 10th day. And now we're going back to the discussion of Yovel, and there's 3 psukim in a row that discuss Yovel. The first pasuk is V'avarta Shefer Trua B'Chodesh Hashvi B'Esrel Chodesh B'Yom Kippurim Taviru Shefer B'Chol Artzachem. This pasuk talks of blowing the shofar on Yom Kippur of Yovel. The next pasuk, which our Gemara begins with, says V'Kidash Mishnasa Chamishim Shana Ukrosem Jor B'Artzel Chol Yoshveha, and you shall proclaim freedom for all of its inhabitants. Yovel He, it is Yovel, and these words Yovel He are the focus of our Gemara. V'Shaftim Ishal Chuzasev Ishal Mishpachti Yashuvu. So the focus of this pasuk is that freedom is proclaimed for slaves and fields. And the last pasuk states Yovel He Shnas Chamishim Shana Tielachem Loises Rov V'Loisek Tzuras Avicheha V'Loisek Tzuras Nazireha. And this pasuk focuses on the Isra to work the land during Yovel. So the Gemara tells us Tanarbanu, we have a brisa. The pasuk says, and this is the second pasuk as we said already, Yovel He, it is Yovel. Afal Pi Shaloi Shamtu, it's still Yovel even though their lands were not returned to their rightful owners. And Afal Pi Shaloi Taku, even though the shofar wasn't blown, it's still considered Yovel. Yachu, you might think Afal Pi Shaloi Shalchu, even if the slaves weren't freed, it's still considered Yovel. Tamalaymer, that's why the pasuk says he, it's only Yovel if the slaves are freed. Div Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The Rabbi Yossi Eimer, he has a different way of understanding these psukim. Yovel he, Afal Pi Shaloi Shamtu, Afal Pi Shaloi Shalchu. It's going to be Yovel even though the slaves weren't freed and even though the lands weren't returned, it's still Yovel. Yachal Afal Pi Shaloi Taku, you might think that even if the shofar wasn't blown, it's still considered Yovel. Tamalaymer he, that's why the pasuk says he, and that tells us if the shofar was not blown, it's not Yovel. And Rabbi Yossi continues explaining, Lamed. We have two psukim, meaning we have two words. One pasuk of Yovel, that's making an inclusion. Even though you didn't do something, it's still considered Yovel. And then we have another pasuk that's a miyat, it's an exclusion. That's the word of he, that if you did not do something, it's not Yovel. So Bnei Ma'ani Omer Yovel he. Why is it that I darshan these psukim of Yovel he? Afal pi shloi shalchu, even though they didn't free the slaves, but the ain Yovel, it's not considered Yovel elim kain taku. Meaning, why is it that I pick one over the other? I say that this is the riboy and this is the miyat. Why is it that I did that? Says Rabbi Yossi. So he explains, it's possible that we're going to have a world that there's not going to be any avadim to set free, so we can't make Yovel contingent on that. But it's impossible that we're going to have a world that we're not going to have a single shofar in the whole world that we can blow. So therefore, we're always going to be able to blow the shofar on Yovel, and that's why Yovel is contingent on blowing the shofar. And Davar Acher, another reason why, is Zu Masur LeBezdin. This is given over to Bezdin, meaning Bezdin appoints their shliach to blow shofar, but Zu and Masur LeBezdin, freeing of slaves is not given over to Bezdin, so therefore we're not going to make Yovel contingent on that. Now the Gemara just asks, my Davar Acher, why is it that we had to have this second reasoning? So we answer because if you're going to counter argue and say that it's impossible that there's not going to be at least one Jewish slave throughout the world that has to be freed, so then I'll answer you Zu Masur LeBezdin, Zu and Masur LeBezdin, and that's the reason why Yovel is contingent on blowing the shofar and not on freeing of slaves. And we continue. Bishlam Rabbi Yossi Kitigam Ratami. Rabbi Yossi just explained his reasoning why he darshans the word Yovel this way and the word he that way. El Rabbi Yehuda my taima. Why is Rabbi Yehuda darshan it the way he darshans it? So Amar Kra, the pasuk says Ukrasim jar ba'aretz. That was the second pasuk, and you shall proclaim freedom throughout the land. Because Savram Rabbi Yehuda holds Mikra Nedrash Lefanav V'lei Lifnei Fanav, meaning we only say that a statement in a pasuk is explaining the statement immediately preceding it, and not two statements preceding it. And when the pasuk says Yovel he, that's only talking about the statement that's immediately preceding it, namely Ukrasim jar ba'aretz, that you shall proclaim freedom. However, two statements before it that talks about blowing shofar is not being explained by the pasuk of Yovel he, and therefore the only thing Yovel is contingent on is setting slaves free and not blowing of the shofar. And now the Gemara just explains the Kuli Alma Dror Lashon Cheros. Everyone agrees that this word Dror is an expression of Cheros, of freedom. My mashma, how is that inferred? The Tanya, we have a brisa that says Ein Dror El Lashon Cheros. Dror means freedom. And on Rabbi Yehuda he says Ma Lashon Dror. What does Dror mean? Kimidayer Beit Dayara, like a person dwells in his house, but Umayvel Schayr B'chal Medina, he's able to take his merchandise and sell it anywhere he wants. He's a free man. He lives at home. Dror, Dyer, he lives here, but he could go wherever he wants. He's not a slave. Now Amar Chi Bar Abba, Amar Yechon, Zudev Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yossi. These were the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. What is Yovel contingent on and was it not contingent on? They say Shlashtan Ma'akvez by all three of these things are Ma'akev. We have to make sure that the slaves are set free and that the lands are returned and that the shofar is blown. Kasafri, they hold Mikra Nidrash Lefanov, Vilifnei Fanav, that not only is a pasuk darshan to explain this statement immediately preceding it, but also two statements preceding it and Ula Achra of the statement afterwards, which talks about giving the land back. Ask the Gemara, hold on 1 second, Vaksiv Yovel. It says in the pasuk Yovel, and that was meant to include something. So we say Ahuda Filu B'chutz La'aretz. That's talking about that Yovel is relevant even in Chutz La'aretz. Ask the Gemara, Vaksiv Ba'aretz. It says only in the land in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. So we explain Ahu B'zman Shnoig Dor Ba'aretz Noig B'chutz La'aretz. At a time when the slaves are being freed in Eretz Yisrael, so they have to be freed in Chutz La'aretz as well. But B'zman She'ein Noig Ba'aretz, at the time that they're not being freed in Eretz Yisrael, Ein Noig B'chutz La'aretz, so then they do not have to be freed in Chutz La'aretz. So we have three different opinions of what Yovel is contingent on. And now going back to the Mishnah, which had said Unetiya, the Mishnah stated that the first of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for young trees. This is referring to the Isra of Arla. The first 3 years of a tree, the fruits are usher to be eaten. If a tree was planted shortly before Tishrei and then it became Tishrei, that's already the beginning of its second year. The Gemara asks Manalan, how do we know that? The pasuk says, Shalai Shana Ma'relim, for 3 years it's forbidden. That's talking about Arla. Uksiv, and the pasuk right afterwards says Shana Revias, and in the 4th year it becomes Neter Revai. You're allowed to eat the fruit in Yerushalayim. V'yalav Shana Shana Tishrei, and we learn Shana from Tishrei. The pasuk says Meireshus Hashana, and that's talking about Tishrei. The Gemara now asks, like we already asked a number of times, Shana Shana from Nisan. Why don't we learn Shana Shana from Nisan? And that means that the Rosh Hashanah of Arla would be Nisan and not Tishrei. The pasuk says Rishon Hulachem L'Chadshei Hashana. So again, we answer like we answered a number of times already. Done in Shana She'eni Machadashim, Mishana She'eni Machadashim. We're going to learn two psukim. Both of them say Shana, and they do not say the word Chaydesh. They ain't done in Shana She'eni Machadashim. We're not going to take a pasuk that says the word Shana without the word Chaydesh, Mishana She'eni Machadashim, and learn something from a pasuk that says the word Shana but also says the word Chaydesh. We're going to stop here for the day. Pick up tomorrow talking about Arla. For now, everyone should have a wonderful day.